So now you are live on YouTube, Dr. Sorah Dubitsky. This mic is
Wow.
all yours.
Thank you. And thank you. I'm sorry I have been doing little things here, busyness stuff, and I missed Myrna and Susan's talks, and I love sitting in on your talks because they just put that what's the word? They put me into the state of peace, and I keep going like this, so I get enfolded with that state of peace. And that's what we're here for, to experience a state of peace and love and um, also higher consciousness. So let's start with a prayer slash meditation. I still need to kind of settle. So if we just close our eyes, and anyone watching, please close your eyes as long as you're not driving. And take some nice deep breaths, like in and out. Imagine you're breathing in and out of your heart. You breathe into the heart, feel your heart expanding, and then exhale from the heart. Feel it's still expanding, but anything that doesn't belong there is just being breathed out. And we breathe in, filling up, and we breathe out and we let go. We breathe in and fill up. We breathe out and let go. Coming to a quiet place. As we focus on the breath, and there's nothing else in this moment but the breath. And gratitude. So let's take a moment longer as we continue breathing. To focus on gratitude. So think of something, anything that you are grateful for. First thing that pops into your mind will do. And just take a moment longer to just say what that is to yourself silently. And just feel how good it feels to be in a state of gratitude. And keep breathing. And I think it was Myrna who said before, it might have been Susan, that, everything we need is inside. And everything we need has already been given to us. So take one or two more deep breaths. Really fill up your heart, your belly. Draw that breath all the way down into your toes. And exhale, and one more time, breathe in fully, deeply, and exhale. And open your eyes when you're ready. And welcome back. One of the earlier lessons from this week was light and peace and joy abide in me. I think starts out, you think you're the home of darkness, and let's see if I can find it. You think if anybody knew what was really inside of you, they'd recoil as if from a snake. And that affirmation of light, yeah, and here is the God's with me. I love these lessons. That affirmation of light, the only thing inside of me is light and peace and joy. I'm not finding it offhand, so we'll just save it. Light and peace and joy are our inheritance. And to go about the busyness of the day like I have been doing today, and then to come back to just take a breath. We know you don't need anything. Needing is clinging. All we need is our breath. And through the breath, we connect. So this week, I was listening to what's the guy's name? Amrit Sandhu. He's got a YouTube podcast. He interviews a lot of famous people I consider famous because I know who they are. Astrologer types, psychic types. And like, I don't know if anyone knows Pam Gregory. I mean, these are people like I watch frequently, and they have big followings on YouTube. And he was talking to, so Amrit was talking to David Hoffmeister. You might know his work. And it was a 2-hour conversation. It was long, and I listened to most of it. And what David was talking about was kind of the metaphysical teachings of the course, projection, perception, listening to the voice. It was very kind of up here. And I kept thinking, oh, and the that host, Amrit, kept asking him, is the course life affirming? And I don't think he ever got a clear answer on that, because parts of the course, as we know, would talk about how, we're not even here. This is all a dream. And it's an illusion. It's an illusion of your own creation. And the real world is, something else, and God's real world is something else. And this idea, sort of even Ken Wapnick used to talk about, that we can never be really happy here. Again, it was very metaphysical, and those of us who've been studying the course for a while know that the course is written primarily in 2 levels, but we could say many levels. And what I wasn't getting was this idea that the course is also about love and healing relationships, and being in the world but not of the world. And that we're not, is it life affirming or love affirming? Well, depends how you look at it, but I think it's very life affirming. When my husband was here, um, we used to talk about Ken Wapnick, and my husband and Ken had this thing, um, that Larry used to think that, the course was very positive, and you live, a much happier life. And Ken never emphasized that. Ken always emphasized that it's, you don't even know what it means. You're not even here, those metaphysical aspects. And what I came away with listening to David's talk is that somebody needs to talk about how we grow through the course, how we lose fear. You were talking about love and fear before, Myrna. And I will see you Thursday. And I called John Monday and I found I got more information about the retreat. So we could talk about that.
Good, good.
Um, I'm sorry?
No, I said good. I'm glad you did. I'm glad
Yeah.
you got it.
I'm in pain. I get impatient. Like I want to know now. So I had a lovely conversation with John. It's been a while. I've known him over 40 years, I think. So it was a great conversation. So the back to what I was saying, the love aspect, the growth aspect, the coming through the dark night of the soul. And it's not to deny, the course brings up stuff. And but and that's that was part of Ken's teaching that you really go through a lot of stuff, and yes, you do. But at the end of the going through any stuff, we bring it up and we give it to the Holy Spirit. We bring it up and we let it go. There's processes in the book that talk about that. There's the atonement process. First, you recognize that you're not at peace, and then I cut it down to 3 steps, and then you ask for help, and then you release it. But those are the growth aspects of course study. Those are the empowerment aspect of course study. And I used to think like good psychology is reinforcing that if your purpose is growth, or your purpose is having people wake up or recognizing who they are, then then what's then that that's going to be or that's going to be a primary experience you want them to have. And that's why I think the course is reinforcing. You do, in my experience, you do get lighter. You do lose, the fear. And that's what makes the course such a powerful tool. It works. And it is, like I said, I'll use the word again, it's reinforcing. As soon as you get your first miracle, like, oh, okay. you know and so the metaphysical aspect is important. And it's important for us to know that there's an after. And I think there's lessons on there is no death, the Son of God is free, um and other lessons on death that aren't coming to me right now. um but the idea that life continues, but the rewards of God are here and now. We don't have to wait until we die to get the rewards of God. That's something else I love about the course. That connection, the depth, the experience of, when we change our perception, the experience of looking through the eyes of love. I had an incident here Sunday. I made dinner for some friends. I like doing that periodically. I cook a lot. That's my Alexa.
Just let me know if you're done.
She's going to say that one more time, and I apologize. I keep forgetting to turn her off. She's reminding me I have to make a phone call,
Just let me know if you're done.
and she's very helpful. There she goes. So I had this dinner on Sunday, and some friends, and some of my friends that I've met here think I'm a little different anyway. I get feedback about that you're different, you're special. Like, huh? Because I not that I work at, I feel more peaceful. And I think, that's part of what my book is. And I feel, that peace radiates, and other people are picking up on something, and they don't know what it is. But I think it's just my sense of peace. So Sunday, I made this dinner, and we were here in the living room, and maybe some of you have done this. I put it was a saute pan, put some olive oil in it, put it on a burner, promptly forgot about it. Went into the living room, chatted, and all of a sudden I'm smelling something. So the olive oil burned. And I did something I shouldn't have done. I put the pan under the sink and ran water. Well, smoke filled the apartment. It was, I don't know, my living room is like I'm in the living room now, my living room all the way to the back bedrooms, the balcony. I mean, it's so much smoke. And my friends were here. Yeah, we opened the door and they went. I have a catwalk outside, so they were out in the catwalk. They reflected such peace. Nobody left screaming for the hills. Nobody said, "You stupid person, how could you have done that?" They were all just so calm. Okay, put on the fans and open the doors and we'll go outside. And they grabbed their wine and went outside and we're chatting outside and some other neighbor, because the smoke alarm went off. And another neighbor came over and wanted to know that everything was all right. So I introduced the neighbors to each other. And it was this whole little party out on the catwalk and no one got upset. And that just mirrored to me the sense of peace that gets transmitted when you want it to be peace. I don't know if it's as meaningful to anyone else, but there could have been a gazillion different outcomes to that, but nobody got upset. And I know because I was reflecting peace, I didn't get upset. And that brings me to the core of what I really wanted to talk about, and I have a couple of passages I'm going to read. And that is, what does it mean to be a teacher of God? And that's been the theme I've been working with. What does it mean to be a teacher of God? And I met a young woman, she may or may not be watching this video on YouTube, um, who is very dynamic. She's probably in her early 20s. She's been very influenced by the Bible, but in a positive way. And she's very connected to Jesus. And she's picked out, and she also does rap, and she's on Instagram. And she's picked out some of the positive messages and is so connected in her transmission. There's such an authenticity that comes through her for like someone who has actually been touched by Spirit, Jesus, God, that in her own way, she's being a teacher of God. In the course, we don't necessarily have to preach at all, about God. Some people are called on to teach about, what the course means and be some kind of formal educator about the course. But other people, and maybe the same situation, the same thing in different, the same people, different times. Sometimes you actually teach, sometimes you demonstrate. To teach is to demonstrate. And there's a lesson here. Well, this is from the teacher's manual in the course. Who are God's teachers? A teacher of God is anyone who chooses to be one. I love this. His qualifications consist solely in this. Somehow, somewhere, he has made a deliberate choice in which he did not see his interests as a part of someone else's. So, to be a teacher of God, you don't even have to mention the word God. You just have to, how do I put this? Have this sense of love expanding within. rather than the fear. I talk about this a lot in the book. We carry an energy field with us. Let's see, I had a chapter. Okay, I'm going to read this a little bit. This is from my book. I will have copies any day now. To love as a verb. This essay is called Love as a Verb. So to love as a verb is to breathe life into a relationship again and again. It means repairing after rupture, staying curious when hurt, and seeing the person beneath the story. It is attention made sacred. And when we practice it long enough, I talk about the ladder of transcendence, and that's earlier in this section. When we practice it long enough, the ladder becomes a climb, becomes less a climb than a surrender, a letting go control of self-image, of fear, until what's left is essence and self. Going back to that incident on Sunday, my reaction could have been being frantic, which I wasn't. It could have been fearful. It could have been like, oh my God, look at what I'm doing. It could have been self deprecating. It could have been feeling guilty. There were so many different ways I could have reacted. And I'm convinced that my perception of calm and the love, put it bluntly, the love that everyone was sharing, created a situation that could have been fearful, that could have been, oh my God, why, could have called the police and the fire engines, but it was a situation of love. And then I love, this paragraph, love as a verb is how we inch toward God. It's the everyday holiness of touch, listening, laughter, and silence. It's sweeping the kitchen, holding the gaze, saying, I'm sorry first. It's remembering, as Eric Fromm, he's one psychologist, like God, I think 1930s, 1940s. It's remembering, as Fromm taught, that love isn't a sentiment we possess, but a skill we cultivate, a lifetime apprenticeship in presence. I have a little more here I'm going to read. So here, this is another essay called Love as a State of Being. And I have quotes from the Course. And this is, love is your identity, and its totality joins you in oneness. And when I hear comments about, and somehow I'm different, I just know it's the love inside of me that's expanding. And here is a state of being means that love is no longer something you do only on special occasions. It becomes your default field, your way of moving through the world. So these are like four little things, or we can, behaviors. I am a psychologist many years now. So in such a state of being love, you listen before you judge. Think about that, in relationships, because what the book is about is really relationships. So in relationships, you listen before you judge. And how frequently does that judging mind pop up? You respond rather than react. And, which means to me, take a breath, before when anything is going on, you just take a breath first. And that kind of generates a response rather than a reaction. And this one, you see the beloved in every person. I think that's the biggest deal, and that's what the mind training of Course in Miracles leads to. Being able to see everyone as the Christ, that's one term, as a holy child of God. And, can we do that? I know the thought I had before was, in another essay in the book, we talk about, I talk about seeing the divinity in every person. And that divinity gets mirrored back to us, and then we act out of divinity. That's why to see the beloved, and that's an Eastern term for the face of God. We talk about the face of Christ, the innocent child that we really all are. You see, and when we're seeing that in everyone, that gets mirrored to us. And then, that's what I felt on Sunday. Like these friends, lovely, lovely women, my gym friends. And, I've known them for a while. I see the face of love in them, and that all got mirrored back to me on Sunday. It was very powerful. It was like, you almost set your house on fire on one level. On another level, it was, look at the love. Look at the love you're sharing. When love is a state, wounds don't disappear, but you approach them differently. And let's see, how are we doing on time? So like 3. So this takes me back to what David Hassmeister was talking about. It was, again, the metaphysical explanations of the Course. He knew Judy Scotch, the original publisher. He knew her husband. They had dinner together. He brought all of that out in what he was saying in this interview. But I kept thinking, the heart is missing. And in one of my talks a few weeks ago, I talked about, the Course and 4 yogas. What are the 4 yogas? There's Jnana Yoga, there's Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga. Oh, it's the 4th one. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. And oh Lord, it'll come, and it's not coming. So I will continue.
Kundalini?
Say that again?
Kundalini?
Kundalini, no, Kundalini would be a form of hatha yoga. It's to raise the energy up. No, we think body is karma yoga, mind would be jnana yoga, bhakti is devotion, and then what's the 4th yoga? Oh my God. Well, we'll go with 3. and I will ask for it to come back to me. And the one I want to focus on, oh Lord, who used to sing, Lord, I want to, Salman Chakdar used to sing a song about the 4 worlds. Even in Kabbalah, they talk about the 4 worlds: body, mind, spirit, emotion. Body, mind, spirit, emotion, doing, and again, the important part is to talk about the Bhakti Yoga. And the Bhakti is the devotion. The Bhakti is the heart. And that's what was missing from the talk I was hearing. Like, where's the heart? And in my practice of the Course, all these years, it's been the heart that's allowed me to grow. And maybe not, and that's what I love about the course. It's big enough that if you're attracted to mind and intellect, um, it's gonna really bother me that I can't remember that.
Is it Jnana Yoga, Jnana Yoga?
Yeah, JNA, but that's the intellect, and that I already remembered.
I got Raja, R-A-J-A. I just got
That's it. That's it. That's the
right.
one.
Just got
Thank
that
you.
voice.
Raja Yoga. Thank you. Raja
That's
Yoga is the mind.
right.
It is, yeah, a lot is meditation, but it's expansion of the mind. Jnana Yoga is expansion of the intellect. The bhakti is the devotion, and the karma is our activities. Thank you, Myrna. I appreciate that.
Chat
So
GPT.
what was missing, what David Hassmeister was talking about, Raja Yoga, he wasn't using those words. Jnana Yoga, very, very intellectual. Karma Yoga, yeah, somewhat, activities. But what I kept feeling was missing was the heart, the Bhakti Yoga. And anytime, I have gone through what the course calls, a dark night of the soul episode. It stemmed from the heart. I do energy work. Um, I pick up on energy. You can call it Reiki, you could call it energy field. And most people, when I'm doing the energy work, when I'm allowing myself to feel other people, it's the main energy centers that I feel need unblocking are the heart and the stomach, and sometimes the throat. But the sense of will gets really hardened in the belly area, and the hearts are closed. And so many times I find myself drawn to giving energy in the heart, because it's the heart that registers and keeps a lot of whatever the pain we've gone through. So in opening up the heart, which of course does not talk about or use those terms, but it does allow for emotion. Some people say the course doesn't have emotion. It allows the awareness of the presence of emotion. And then it allows for, just by lifting it up, to bringing darkness to the light. Not light to the darkness, whereas to bring the darkness to the light. It allows, for the healing to occur. So, 308, in summary, what does it mean to be a God's teacher? You see someone else's needs, you see someone else's interest is not apart from yours. We all want to be happy. We all want to be safe. We all want to be secure. We want to, live in that state, light and peace and joy abide in me, live in that state of security. And we find, as Course in Miracles students, we find that our ground of being becomes the Course's teachings. Because we're, the 3D world is chaotic. And the world the Course presents us, there's a term, there's the world, the real world, and God's real world. So the way I interpret that, the world is the chaos, the putting your pan under water, and creating steam all over, or smoke all over the place. The real world is seeing, as I understand it, the 3D world, but you're seeing it through the eyes of forgiveness. And when you see it through the eyes of forgiveness, then that sense of security, happiness, joy, fearlessness becomes part of your everyday waking state. That because it's this world, or the 3D world, is forgiven. That's what the real world definition, it's we see the world, the 3D world, through the eyes, forgiving eyes, loving eyes, because we know we have nothing to be afraid of. That every once in a while the word the Course uses, innocence, comes up to me. No, you don't have to beat yourself up. Lynn, I did a good job beating myself up for missing last night. You don't have to do that. You don't have to beat yourself up anymore. You're not guilty, you're innocent. Those ideas become the foundation of our being. And then God's real world, as I understand, is when we leave here. And the oneness is we're non-physical, we're non-corporeal beings anymore. We're in that state of oneness and bliss with the Creator and all of creation. And now, the real world, the world seen through the eyes of the real world, the eyes of forgiveness, is an approximation of what God's real world would look like. So I think with that, it's 3:11. I want to stop by about 3:15. Comments, questions? Myrna, you saved me. I'm really happy about that. Thank you. I could not think of Raja Yoga.
I'm
and
not
I
that
knew
smart. I looked it up.
you looked it up. I knew people, groups here in Florida. There's a group called the Brahma Kumaris, Daughters of Kumaris. It's an offshoot of Hinduism,
Yeah.
and their spiritual practice is Raja Yoga. They take meditation very seriously, and I, knew them the first time I lived in Florida. That's another story. Let's see. Yes, John Monday. I'll tell you all about on Thursday. How much, what the price involved, that was my first choice. Okay, what does this price include? So it sounds really nice, and we can talk about, make plans, and
That would be nice.
that'll be nice. Yes.
I have ideas also about how to proceed. So we'll put our heads together.
Yes, we'll put our heads together. Yes, it'll be nice. I'm seeing Myrna for lunch on Thursday. And what else? Announcements. My podcast is up about sex and sexuality. It's called Let's Talk Sex Official, Birds, Bees, and Beyond. And the latest episode we're going to be recording tomorrow will be about sexual coercion. And maybe some of the women, maybe even men, experience that when that idea of being pressured into doing something you don't want to do. So that's going to be the next episode. We'll record tomorrow, but it's Let's Talk Sex Official, Birds, Bees, and Beyond. And let's see, the book is out, Intimacy, the Sacred Space Between Us. And I will have some copies next week that I can actually hold up and read from. Well, and I have it on my computer, so I was able to do that. And then, there are these talks about the Course, and which I appreciate. 40 years, 45 years, it's hard to explain. When you live with the discipline for such a long time, it does become foundational. And that's what I feel about the Course. the only way, when I catch myself looking at the world not through the eyes of the course, I'm aware of it. So looking through the course, looking at the world through the eyes of the course is, I don't know. I don't know how people who don't have a spiritual practice, kind of coordinate things. I guess everyone has their own coping mechanism. Okay, so Lynn, Monday, I will have Alexa remind me.
Good.
I'm going to tell her right now on Monday. So it starts at 7, right?
Starts at 7, yes.
5 to 7. Is that what you said?
It starts at 7. You can come in earlier.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
I'll make sure I do that.
Yeah, so
And Dove, I hope you're okay. I wonder, so are you guys going to be at that retreat?
let me take us off of YouTube. And thank you so much, Dr. Sorah. I appreciate